I'm Howard Wong,
And this is Josh Stafford,
and you're listening to True North.
Country Comics, and you can read our new comic, Damn Cursed Children, available from Source Point Press.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. It's November 30th, 2020. I'm John Swinimer. If you have a comment, criticism, or question, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Howard Wong and Josh Stafford about Damn Cursed Children. The podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. And don't forget to check out the new YouTube channel. Howard is an award-nominated writer and creative development specialist with over 2 decades in corporate and creative industry experiences. His passion for speculative fiction and narrative-driven intellectual property development, creative cross-cultural media content has led him to work in animation, children's books, comic books, high-end collectible toys, intellectual property development, marketing and branding, mobile and web games, and transmedia story development. His collaborative works in comics have been nominated for the Joe Shuster Award, Gene Day Award, Comic Book Buyers Fan Award for Favorite Graphic Novel, and the Ghastly Award for Favorite Horror Anthology. Howard has been nominated for the Joe Shuster Award for Outstanding Canadian Comic Book Writer and received Diamond's Gem of the Month for his creator-owned work. Josh is a co-owner and resident geek-in-chief of Ottawa's historic Mayfair Theatre, one of the oldest-running single-screen cinemas left not only in Canada, but on the planet. He graduated from Canterbury Arts High School and Vancouver Film School. Amongst other projects, he directed a short film which screened at San Diego Comic-Con and co-produced a roller derby documentary for CBC. More recently, his written efforts include the animated flash-forward flashback for DC Superhero Girls, and comic writing credits include 3 issues of Zonkies, along with Flip Volumes 1 and 2. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Howard Wong and Josh Stafford about Damn Cursed Children. Howard Wong and Josh Stafford, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
I appreciate your time. What I normally do to start off interviews is ask creators about their first comic book. So I'll ask you, Howard, first. What was the first comic book that you read?
Oh boy. Officially, I would say a Tarzan comic book, believe it or not, and I got it not from a shop, but from I think it was from Scholastic. I was actually ordered those little flimsy paper order forms from school, and my parents always advocated that I need to buy a book and then read it and then talk to them about it. What they didn't know that they also sold comic books. So I picked a Tarzan comic book which talks about his origin story, and for the life of me, I cannot remember who did it, but I know it was oversized. It was absolutely beautiful art. It was actually, kind of think of it now, I mean, how old was I? I was probably in grade, I want to say 3, 4, or even maybe younger, grade 3 or 4. And the thing was, it was pretty violent. Now I think about it, it's pretty violent because people died and stuff. And then Tarzan actually stabbed somebody by accident. And so,
wow.
So it's sort of like, for somebody at my age, it's sort of like, this is the best book ever. And I remember loving it, and I honestly believe I still have it, possibly somewhere. I did lose a lot of books, unfortunately, because my parents, most of my stuff was kept at my parents' place, and they had a fire, small fire, nothing big. They were totally fine. The house is totally fine. It was a small fire, but the firemen, they flooded the house with water. So I lost a lot of books, including, I might have lost that one. I haven't gone through all the boxes yet because they're in storage because of the mold and stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
I might have lost it. I might still have it. I know I lost some stuff that I got signed by certain artists and writers that I really like. I won't mention it because it was really heartbreaking, actually.
Oh, sorry to hear.
But I know but that Tarzan book it hit home with me because I kept on reading it. That was
Right.
the one thing. I mean, I would scan the pages, read it, and then it was one of those things where you wanted more. So that got me into comic books from that point on.
Cool. How about you, Josh? What was the first comic book that you remember reading?
So I totally cheated, and I just Googled Fantastic Four Purple Monsters cover, and I found it. So it's Fantastic Four number 221, and I just remembered I was about 4 years old probably. The cover date on it says 1980, and it was just this random comic that I got from my dad for my birthday, if I remember correctly. And it was just one of those, like, he brought it home to me, and it just has this great cover with monsters, and they're in the snow, and it's one of those weird things where Mr. Fantastic is still wearing a coat over his costume, just little details like that. But yeah, so that was my first comic, and I've never stopped. Like, it's been 40 years, and I don't even consider myself a collector anymore, really, because so many comics is not really worth anything anymore. I have a giant collection that's very few of them are anything that's going to put kids through college. But yeah, so Fantastic Four 221, and then I've been reading comics forever.
Cool. Well, those are great inspirations, Tarzan and Fantastic Four. But I'm wondering, who inspires you today to create your works? And I'll ask you, Howard, first.
Wow, that's a great question. Who inspires me today? Well, it's going to be weird, I guess, for me to answer this because it won't be directly all from comic books. So I think most geeks are multimedia in that sense. So let me jump into animation first, and also, I guess, a streaming series. So from Clone Wars to The Mandalorian, and we know Dave Filoni is doing an amazing job with that, because I've been following let's put it this way: when Clone Wars started, people were like, they looked at the style of the animation, they're like, oh, it's 3D, oh, it's terrible. I'm like, give it a chance. I mean, we said the same thing about Mainframe back in the day, and then when season 3 hit, people were going gaga over it. I'm like, because they figured how to tell a better story with what they got. And so it's like things like that I like following, that inspire me, that you can take something that may be a concept and push it to the point where it becomes its own thing. Like the last season of Clone Wars is absolutely bonkers amazing, what they did with it. Unexpected, they did mocap for that. I don't want to do any spoilers, but that scene between Ahsoka and a certain horned person.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievably, that was actually the actual actor and a stunt woman. God, I brain farted her name. I'm such a bad person, because she also plays the armorer in The Mandalorian when all the action scenes. So that in season 1, when she's kicking butt, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched it. That was the same stunt person. I was like, this is crazy, because it's just following that kind of thing and deviating to things like that, following a stunt actress or stunt men doing their thing, is amazing. So that's like from animation to streaming series. I don't know. For writing wise, I guess Kurt Busiek would definitely be one influence for sure. I mean, I keep saying this to certain people, especially younger people who haven't who haven't read all his stuff, which is hard because it's a whole library of material there. But I'm like, I always say that he can write anything, because he's written Conan very, very well and very faithful to the source material, to doing Astro City and so forth and so forth, right? And so forth, to be able to transition just between fantasy to superheroes and totally be fine, and the voices are fine, and the storytelling, pacing is totally like you can't imagine it's the same person writing, but it is. So some people like that, to I guess what they're doing with Umbrella Academy on Netflix. Now, I read the comic books. I love the comic books. I think I lost those comic books, actually. But the TV series is a completely different thing. And I knew that going in. And as I watched it, I enjoyed it for what it was. I didn't hate it or anything. But a lot of people are like, oh, it's not the same as the comic book. I know. But it's really cool what they're doing with it. It's basically taking his life on its own, right? It's people who are able to do that, to take that leap where it's like going against the geek code of, I'm going to take this and change it and make something different from it. It's like, no, don't, most people will just say, no, don't do that. That's awful. But if you do it right, we get things like The Mandalorian.
Right.
Things like the Umbrella Academy, streaming series, things like that. So anyone who takes that and trailblazes that path where it's totally against the market, if you want to call it that. It inspires me to tell stories and write stories that may or may not go against the grain. For our purposes, we're Damn Cursed Kids. That totally went against the grain. I know the cover is a homage to the 1950s horror comics and stuff, and it looks like it's going to be like that, but it's not. We're pushing it, as I mentioned, like how the Mandalorian was developed, how Umbrella Academy was developed. We're pushing the envelope a little there because it's just something that we wanted to do.
Sure. How about you, Josh? What about your inspirations for today?
For today, my favorite writer is Grant Morrison, and has been for, you blink, but it's been like 20 years. I remember when he took over Justice League, I was still kind of like a reverse snob, where I was like, I don't want this Vertigo guy taking over writing Batman and Superman. And I just fell in love with his big, crazy brain. And in the years since then, even recently, I like how he loves the comic book. Like he doesn't use terms like graphic novel, and he really likes writing for that monthly cliffhanger and being in a shared universe and all that kind of stuff that he does when he writes X-Men or Green Lantern or anything like that. And then he also does his own crazy, bizarre, weird stuff still. So yeah, if I had to pick one, Grant Morrison is kind of my comic book hero. And when I was a kid, I was kind of the perfect age for the Mirage Comics Ninja Turtles, and back when comic stores were still kind of not cool and grungy and with those 50-cent bins and that kind of thing. And so I was just the right age to buy some of those reprints of the black and white Mirage, and then when I was a little kid, be snobby about the cartoon and thinking that's not real Ninja Turtles. And yeah, so it's kid influence Ninja Turtles, and currently Grant's totally my favorite writer. And I agree with Howard. The last 4 episodes of Clone Wars, I think, are my favorite Star Wars ever. I love all that stuff.
Great, good stuff. Well, Howard, you touched on our next point of conversation here, which is your new horror miniseries from SourcePoint Press called Damn Cursed Children. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, if you could maybe each mention your contribution to the miniseries. And maybe, Howard, you can go first.
Oh, sure. Well, the contribution is, I guess I was the first, be my kids. At the time, I was actually on the phone with Josh. Actually, I honestly can't. I still can't remember. I don't know if Josh can fill this in. I can't remember.
It's a great little origin story of unplanned inspiration that now, years later, we've got a comic book, and I'm very excited about that because it just kind of started for fun. But yeah, it's Howard's kid's fault.
Yeah, but I still can't remember why we were talking on the phone, though. That's the honest truth. Just for people who don't know, I lived in Toronto and Josh is in Ottawa, so we don't get to hang out, besides at the conventions. That sounds really weird to say.
I think we were planning convention meeto. I think I was riding your coattails to get a free pass to get into the convention. I think that's what we were chatting about. Yes,
you wanted to be the person helping me move my stuff. The guy who lives in Ottawa. But which is fine. Yes, that's what it was. But my kids were very young back then. Like they were like in daycare, and for whatever reason, they picked up like this zombie virus like every week. I kid you not, because my wife and I kept on getting sick to the point where the doctor refused to give us antibiotics because we would get immune to it, which is terrible to say that out loud. Yeah, we weren't doing well. I mean, if we were like that now, people would be freaking out right now, especially with what's going on. But we were really bad. Like we didn't go out to see friends because we were it was terrible. I had things coming. I mean, I learned about saying things that I didn't know existed. Like, okay, don't quote me on this. I think it's called the Nazi pot, where you
put that's salt, right. Yep.
Yeah, the salt water thing. So the doctor gave us like a modern version, which is basically a squirt bottle version.
Oh.
But she didn't tell us how to use it. So I learned that use warm water and salt versus cold water and salt, because that does not work and it hurts like hell.
Yeah.
But it basically flushes out all your the goop out of your nose and sinuses, and it's like if it wasn't for that, we would be dead, I think, today. But my kids kept on getting sick, getting us sick, and they were sick. And when Josh was talking to me, and he's like, "What's going on? Are you still sick?" I'm like, "I've been sick for a month at this point." He's like, "Yeah, I'm still sick." And then he's like, "What happened?" I'm like, "I think I got it from my kids because they're fine now, but we're dying." And then he blurted out, "Go ahead, you can blurt it out right now."
I just said "damn cursed children,"
and that was it,
as a sarcastic person without children, and it just stuck. And I think Howard jokingly then said, "Oh, that's a good name for a comic," and it didn't leave either of our brains for a while. And then we just kind of started saying, "Yeah, you know what the hell? Let's try this out." And we developed some characters and started hashing out scripts and kind of went from there. But yeah, it all just started randomly. And Howard and I are both. Howard has more of a foot in the writing game than I do, but we're both comic nerds. At the time, I had done some short films and writing there and stuff like that. But and then I love working with a team versus alone, just to kind of to have ideas to bounce off of and stuff. And so then now we've got a comic coming out from that random kind of sarcastic remark.
That's pretty cool. Now, Howard, you had told me prior to our conversation that this is your first project with a co-writer. So I'm wondering, what process did you and Josh have to go through to change your writing process to complete the story?
Was a lot of yelling involved? No, no.
We never flipped a table. We're cool. We're good writers. We're good co-writers.
You know what? To be really frank, I guess we're very Canadian co-writers.
Yeah.
But it was pretty weird because what would happen was, whoever wrote it first, it doesn't matter who would plot it out. Like we did, I think when we worked on a plot, whoever got it first done, we would send it over to the other person, and then the person would just make notes or hack it up or whatever, and we go back and forth. But it was never we never had that situation, even down to when we started working on this actual script and changing each other's dialogue for characters and stuff. But it was never that, oh, you changed my dialogue, you son of a... No, it has to stay there. That the whole monologue that takes like 10 pages is gonna stay. No, it was never that. It was always that factor where I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna change this because it feels a little weird because of this scene and this scene. And Josh would be like, yeah, but how about this scene here that I'm like, oh yeah. And then it changed. It became that. It was never like us arguing. It was more like, explaining why we made changes and showing where we made the changes, and as in we make it, if this person says this here, does this action here, this would make all these other things afterwards totally make sense, which was great because it was never that I'm going to write this character like this, that's it, I don't care what you think or what you're going to do, but this is my character, screw you. It was never that. It was always that we're nurturing this thing together, and it was actually a very amazing project because we never. I know a lot of people who, when I told at the beginning of this, I'm going to be co-writing with this judge. Oh, you shouldn't co-write. It's a horrible idea. You're going to argue. You're never going to get things done because you might have that one point in the story where you want to go this way, he want to go that way, and you won't see eye to eye. It'll never get done. But that thing never happened with us, which was great. It was always that, your idea sounds like, their idea is better. We should add that to this, and then we can change all this whole 3 scenes to whatever, and then we'll always go back and forth that way. So even down to when I was lettering it, sometimes I had to change certain things that I wrote because I was like, okay, because of the way the art's set up, I need to change this dialogue. And I would I would email Josh. I'm like, okay, my dialogue is out because it's way too long, and I'll cover up like 90% of the art. So let's do this now. So we just literally email each other that day to fix the dialogue of whatever panel or panels that we need to fix. So I don't think we ever argued. It was sort of that jokingly, like, you cut out my lines, and then the other person would have to explain why. I think. I don't think we argued to do it.
And if there's ever, if there's ever an absolute edition of Damn Cursed Children, the final script is unreadable to anyone but Howard and I. Because it's like, okay, my new notes are in purple, and then they're in orange, and then it totally got it. The first draft was in a nice, beautiful, easy to read comic script format, and by the end it's just notes and jotting and stuff because we kept trying to make it better and trying to get it to this final product. And it's good to have, I think, somebody to just catch continuity, because on a number of occasions, going both ways, one of us would say something like, oh, this character should reference this, and then we go back and be like, oh, we never gave their kid a name, or he didn't do something there. So we go back and switch some dialogue. That's what I like about it. It's like in television when you have a writer's room, you've got half a dozen people to kind of catch you. But sometimes I know I've been in a situation where you write something and then weeks later an editor or someone looks at it and there's a giant plot hole and you're like, oh yeah. So So that's nice too. I like having writing partner for that reason as well.
Great. Now, Howard, you mentioned that there was a third person involved in this project, and the artist is located in Singapore. So how did you overcome that challenge?
Technology.
Okay, sure.
But the thing is, the artist, the wonderful artist on Damn Cursed Children is Robin Simon Ng. He is actually in Singapore. That is correct. And I actually met him a bajillion years ago in Hong Kong when he was on vacation, and I was there too. So happened to be in the same place at the same time. Now, I actually met Robin online when I was looking for an artist for After the Cape 2, the second miniseries from Image Comics that I was writing, because the original artist couldn't continue. That was Marco Rudy, because he got some contracts. I think it was with DC at that time. Either that or was with Boom. One or the other. I can't remember. We would have to ask him about that one.
It was Justice Society, wasn't it, or something weird like
was
that?
Was it that?
Was it?
It was.
I think. I don't know.
It
was right before he became Marco Rudy.
I think it was
Shield. That's what it was. You're right.
The Shield, right?
I keep on thinking Justice
Society. Shield at DC.
Yeah.
Right. I think he was working on Shield at DC. So because Rob, to clear the air, people was like, did he just leave you? Like, for even now, some people ask me that for some reason. Like, no. I'm like, no, he did not just up and leave me. First and foremost, Marco's amazing. The fact that we got After the Cape off the ground was literally because he convinced me to continue, because I had a lot of artists drop out, flake, took money, did nothing. You know, the whole usual bit of things that happen when you're trying to do create your own book. So he did an incredible job in the first series. So the second series, he told me that he wanted to accept his contract. He even told me, he's like, if you say no, like, this is not cool, then I won't sign. I'm like, are you crazy? Sign a damn thing. Go do it. I will figure this out. I will smooth it out with, the Image, and then I'll move on. If not, whatever, because that's like a one-in-chance opportunity for you. So I was looking for artists, and Robin popped onto the radar. He answered one of my ads. Wow, this is back during the days of the boards on Pencil Jack or Digital Webbing, one of the two. And his art was amazing back then even, and he was giving me samples and stuff. I was running it past Image. They're like, yes, this is fine. And then they gave us production timeline to do the second miniseries. But Robin, which is funny, Robin was having his first kid, so he's like, he had to bow out. And I was like, no, curse you. But I don't totally understand. I have kids, so I get it. Funny thing was that my second kid was born during the second series. I totally feel for him. So I kept in touch with Robin, because Robin liked my writing, and we kept in touch. And then when his life became a little more stable, when his kid got a little bit older, he asked, is there anything that we could do together? And at that time, I was writing that script with Josh, and I was like, well, I'm not writing a superhero story right now, but I'm writing this. I won't tell you what it is, because if I say what it is, you probably wouldn't want to read it. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, just trust me. So I sent him, I think, the first issue, or maybe the first two issues. I can't remember how much we have written back at that time. But he came back within, I think, a few days, and said he was all in. So, and he started drawing, and I was like, my God. And then when you see the art, and in this preview, I posted sneak peeks here and there, everywhere in Reddit to Facebook to Instagram. If you follow me anywhere, you'll see it. Even Josh's feeds, you'll see them. Now, the way he worked is crazy, because his pencils are pretty much what you see in the inks. So he was this is a rough page. What do you think? This is done, isn't it? How we can't change.
Yeah, it's like we're ready to go. We're here.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I was like, you can just slap on inks and this is done. It's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that, but yeah, because he always tells me he can go further. But that's so we got him onto Damn Cursed Kids because of fate, really, because he had his kid, couldn't do After the Cape 2, and he wanted to work with me, which was amazing. And then he worked on this book which Josh and I wrote, and he brought a very different flair to it, because he's not a super big horror fan, especially the classic horror stuff that I guess North American or Western kids would, from the Western world would grow up with, everything from the Crypt Keeper stuff down to, right. I don't know, you name any 80s horror movie to, the 70s, from the 70s all the way up. I've watched them because that's what you do as a kid, right? But in Singapore, not so much apparently. I didn't know because like when we talked about to him about this is the kind of covers we're thinking of. He gave us like a bunch of covers that we liked but didn't love, which is what happened. And then me and Josh talked about why don't we do a homage to like the EC comic covers because they're so awesome and this is like perfect for this. And when I messaged Robin, it's like, what do you think? He's like, what are those? Okay, here's going to be a quick education with it. So we just email him like just cover after cover that we found online. It's just like, like this, or like this one, or this one. So at the end, we're like, okay, we probably gave them like 20 to 50 of these between you and me. We probably should stop and ask them to choose like 5.
And then we even threw in a mix of just some movie posters. Like I really liked the remake poster for Night of the Living Dead, for Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead. So that got used. And so, yeah, but it was just that EC style works so great. And Robin's art, especially in black and white, for me, really harkens back to those kind of 70s Marvel kind of magazine-size horror comics. And yeah, so it's funny that he has no influence from that because it looks so good. He's stealing anyone's style. He has no knowledge of it. But he works so well within this genre, I think.
Cool. Good. I'm glad it all worked out, that's for sure. But so now that you have Damn Cursed Children behind you, do you think there might be any plans for you both to collaborate in the future?
I want to do a sequel. Everybody buy the comic. I want to do a sequel.
So Damn Cursed Children. So it's getting messages from people asking me questions. Damn Cursed Children #1 is in previews right now and in shops in I think near the end of January 27th, I think. Okay. Don't quote me on that. So for Josh to say that, we definitely need your help. Definitely order the book from your local comic book shops because if you enjoy horror or have friends or family who enjoy it, you'll love this. 2, it will definitely help the shops to stay where they are and be able to be your shop because they're hurting for sure. So that helps, the pre-orders helps the shops and helps us too because it tells the publisher, our wonderful publishers at SourcePoint Press, that people want this and then we can do a second series. Yeah, to answer the question for short, yes, that absolutely, because Josh is very knowledgeable about what he knows and he's very open to learning new things because there are things that sometimes when you try to explain something to somebody, I won't mention names or whatever, that you want to go this way and do it this, use this method of doing something. They may not be open to it because they're so used to doing something their way or a way that you can't, blow up the story to the point where that you wanted to make it really great. Still good, but you want to make it great. So Josh is wonderful to work with in that sense as well. The other thing is that he's, between him and I, he's definitely the grammar cowboy, which is great because I'm like drilling through story. I'm like, okay, continuity. Okay, where does this left hand right? Because in this panel, it kind of looks like it's not the same hand. I'm that guy. I'm like the visual guy, the storytelling. Basically, I need to make sure the story flows. And even if we see a teddy bear in this panel from this scene, it has to be in that one because it's the same scene. I'm that weird person, but for catching dialogue and grammar and people's names down to I think it was an amazing thing. I think he caught some like double spaces after some periods here and there, because when you're lettering in a lettering frenzy, you might miss that. You'd catch that. I'm like, how the hell did you see that? I was like, all right, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'll fix that. I don't know if I notice it, but I'm gonna fix it because it's there. So Josh is amazing with that as well. And as he mentioned, he wrote short films, but he also wrote something for DC that amazed people.
This year has been a horrible year for everybody, and I don't want to make light of it, but this has been an amazing year for me besides for that, because we finally got this Damn Cursed Children off the ground, which is just amazing. Just right now, an editor who Howard has worked with as well, named Jack Briglio, has an anthology called Flip, and so Flip Volume 2 just came out. It's available through your local bookstore and Amazon and everywhere, and I've got a story in that. And that's a big epic sci-fi story, which is so fun, because when you're working in film, you can't have spaceships and you can't have that stuff. So that's what I love about working in comic books so much, and that's really concentrated more on the last few years. And then I stumbled into getting a Flash story on this really great cartoon called DC Superhero Girls. And you can just watch that. It's a little 3-minute short on YouTube called Flash Forward, Flash Back. It has 3 million views, and I don't get $1 for every view, but I get recognition. But
Sure.
But I got to do a Flash story this year. Recently, I did a little romance sci-fi and a thing called Strange Romance that's on Comixology. So I'm building up my nerd resume more and more, and getting to a Flash cartoon and then getting Damn Cursed Children off the ground has been a gold star nerd accomplishment for me this year for sure.
Cool. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, wanted to ask you each where people can find out more about your current and future projects online. Maybe Howard, you could go first.
Well, if you want to find out, you can follow me on my blog, which is howard-wong.blogspot.com, or on Facebook. Just look for Howard Wong, and I'm not sure where's my Facebook account. I think it's Howard Wong 1, I guess. But the blog, if you go on my blog, actually all my social media accounts are listed there, and I usually update everything I'm doing there as well. There's also a published work list that includes all the stuff I did in comic books, mobile games, and so forth as well. But yeah, I think that's the best place to find me, actually. How about you, Josh?
I'm just Josh Stafford on Facebook. I'm more on social media because I co-run a movie theater called the Mayfair Theater, so I run all that social media. So I'm mostly on Twitter in my secret identity as @Mayfair Theater. And same thing on Instagram. And then I have my Instagram account, which I try to update but don't do a great job on, which is @BatTurtle_Mayfair. And BatTurtle is just my old nerd name from because I like Batman and Ninja Turtles. But so I'm more Mayfair Theater. But if you look for me on Facebook, just my normal name, Josh Stafford, and you'll find me there.
Thanks to Howard and Josh for the chat. You can discover more about Howard on Twitter @HowardWong1 and online at howard-wong.blogspot.com. You can discover more about Josh on Twitter @MayfairTheater and on Instagram @BatTurtle_Mayfair. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter @TrueNorthComics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube, so please like and subscribe to that video channel. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2020.